Hey folks, and welcome to a material review, which is something probably a little unusual for what I do on the channel, but which you might find useful if you've seen the news from Warlord Games about their new Warlord resin that they're going to be populating some of the bolt action range with. Now, I'll give you the really short answer straight away rather than making you wait. Yeah, it's good. I'm actually really surprised. In my heart of hearts, I still prefer metal, but I think in part that's probably because of familiarity. So, full disclosure here, I wasn't paid or anything for this, but I did get sent these samples for free. It came with a very nice little handwritten note, and I feel as though it's necessary, well, at least it's worth having a quick talk about that, because what you're going to see is there's no contract, there's no money being exchanged, I'm free to say what I like. And at one point in the little note here, it does say, I for one would be interested in seeing your honest review of them. Now, to me, that makes a big difference. So I'm going to go as hard as I can to find the stuff I don't like and what I do, and I'll let you know. Because, I'm a customer as well of Warlord Games. You've probably seen I've got a, frankly, ridiculous bolt action collection, so this change is something that's going to affect me too. I've got no skin in trying to convince you one way or the other that this is a good thing. I'm pretty excited. I think it might be, to be perfectly honest, but let's get into the why. So in front of me here, you'll probably notice what I have is an Italian spotter for the sniper team. Now, I was very kindly sent the special weapons teams, and it's perfect because I already have the metal versions of those. I ordered them when the new Italians came along. So it gives me a great sort of place that I can compare these materials with the same miniatures. Now, looking at them as they are, which one's which? These have both been assembled, cleaned up, and primed, and honestly, until I picked them up to put them on the table here, I had genuinely forgotten which one is which. On the left here, yeah, there we go. That is the new Warlord resin, and this is the old metal one. So I think you can see straight away, once they are primed, they're almost indistinguishable from one another. The resin, of course, is much lighter. It feels a lot more like plastic. Now, plastic, not quite plastic or not quite resin, stuff like Cyocast or Ceocast, however you say it, I generally don't like those miniatures. They feel a bit cheap. They're wobbly more than anything else. I don't much care for them. I was quite surprised by how much I actually like the change to this Warlord resin. This is something I think is going to be really cool. So side by side, obviously, they look the same, but I have done a little bit of cleanup on the Warlord resin version so that it would, look the same once it was primed. So if they look the same once they're primed, how is it that they're actually different to the old metals? Let's pick one up and give you a show of that. So this is the Silverthorn 20mm anti-tank rifle, and this is how it came out of the box. I haven't done any cleanup or anything like that. There's a little bit of a kink in it here, and that's because I decided I was going to try and break it. And I know that sounds insane. One of the things I don't ordinarily like about this sort of material is how flobbery it is, because you tend to find bending it around and playing with it for a while, it'll stay shooting around corners, basically. But to give you some idea of how durable this actually is, this is what I was doing with it last night, properly bending it back. I tried to break it. I wanted to see if it was possible that it would snap. Nah, under normal conditions, unless you are desperately trying to break it, this stuff is going to be fine. A little bit of a bend there, but it was just a case of working that back out. If you do end up with a proper bend, one that stays in place, then this stuff is resin-based, so a little bit of warm water or a hairdryer to heat it up, it will treat this exactly the same as a normal resin. So that's a huge bonus, because flobbery, bendy stuff, which actually goes back to its original shape, especially on something as long as the AT rifle here, that's great. But what about cleanup? Because one of the things that ordinarily is such a pain about these materials is that you either can't scrape them like plastic, you've kind of got to carve them with a knife. So I figured what I'd do would be to grab a file. So here I've got the loader for the light mortar. You'll see there's a couple of little nubbly bits And what I'm going to do to demonstrate is actually to file his helmet smooth, because this little nubbin, we can pretend that that would be an imperfection in the casting. And let's just take a few seconds here and buff it away. And honestly, I am stunned to be able to report just how easy that is. Sometimes these not quite resin, not quite plastic materials, they get a little bit funny about being filed, but that is smooth. And once it's primed, you'd never see anything was there. The other bonus with this stuff is, of course, because it is a resin, you can cut it with a knife. If you're into converting and such like that, you're going to find that much, much simpler. I also discovered, I can't really show you this because I did do the cleanup already, so you can shave it with a blade, or you can file it down. Just go smooth. I kind of find that if you are filing very quickly, you're going to end up making it rough. But if you're not sort of heating it up as you take your time to file it, you get a wonderful smooth finish, and that's genuinely very impressive to me. Now, as well as all of that cool stuff, it does hold a slightly sharper edge where it's cast. So even on miniatures which we've seen in metal before, things like hair and around faces and that are a little bit sharper. They're going to be a lot more easy to paint, and I am looking for, I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing more of this stuff. I wasn't sure at first, like when Warlord announced that they were moving to this resin stuff, I kind of blanched because, I've had poor experiences with this flexible, not resin stuff before. But to be quite honest, having a handful of these in front of me and getting a chance to play with them, I'm really looking forward to more. So if anybody at the Warlord team is watching and you've enjoyed this, I just want to say, please, the winter US infantry, the early US paratroopers who've got all of those wobbly carbines, please make them out of this stuff instead of the metal. The number of times I've had to replace carbines, I would really love for them to bend rather than snap. So quite genuinely, yeah, I want to see more of this. I was skeptical, but having that side by side with something that I'm familiar with, I don't know. I love the weight of metal. My heart is still with metal, but having these things made out of a material that isn't quite so susceptible to some of the international price changes of materials like tin that goes into white metal, I think in the long run for consumers, customers and gamers, we're going to see this as a real positive. So yeah, end result, what a cool material. I am genuinely really chuffed. So thank you again to Warlord for sending these along, and I'm going to paint some Italians out of this funky resin stuff.